Hello, everyone, and welcome to this latest live episode of Vox Vomitus and our special holiday eggnog extravaganza. My cup matches yours a little bit with the
It
blue.
does blue. I was trying to kind of match my sweater, and my hair's kind of hiding my hippo, and that's unacceptable. I would
We'll
have to
do a
stand up
sweater.
more
We'll do a sweater fit check
later.
in a few minutes.
Okay. For
But
now,
yes,
just drink.
just drink your eggnog. Thank you all for being here. As you probably know, you probably aren't just tuning into the eggnog extravaganza for the first time.
They could be
They could be, and they're like, "What the is happening here?"
valid.
Valid thought. My name is Jennifer Ann Gordon. I am the author of Pretty Ugly, From Daylight Till Madness, When the Sleeping Dead Still Talk, and The Japanese Box, and Other Stories. Hello, Abby. Joining me today, as always, is my favorite reindeer, Vixen, Vox Vomitus Vixen, Allison Martine, author of The Bourbon Books, which includes Dibs, Since September, Move on Melinda, Climb the Salmon Ladder, and Ranchers Take Manhattan. There is no Christmas or holiday themed rancher book just yet,
Yes.
but you've promised me for
Yes.
almost 5 years now that there will one day be a very Laurie Sunkist Christmas.
It'll happen. It'll happen. I don't know if it'll happen this decade, but it'll happen. Yeah.
I know things are busy, but I hope there would be eggnog on the cover of that one.
Ooh. Well, eggnog or hot chocolate or some kind of boozy holiday cocktail.
Like a peppermint
also,
martini.
Yeah, I don't know how you'd show that unless you like stuck a candy cane in there, but
Candy
Abby's
cane
also
with like
waiting for the Rancher's Christmas book. I think you guys aren't really realizing how much it will be so Laurie Sunkist in your face for an entire book, and it will still just be like a novella, but that is a lot of Laurie Sunkist.
That
So,
is. But I mean,
yeah.
in theory, I do want that because I
Okay,
feel like
you're
if
at it.
I'm going to, because as people know, I'm normally kind of a Scrooge.
Yeah, you are.
But if I'm gonna do Christmas, if I'm gonna do a very merry thing, it would have to be Laurie Sunkist because she is all bright and cheerful. So for my fit check, you can't really see, but I'm wearing a little red T-shirt that says "Krampus is my spirit animal."
He is.
I'm like, how do I do this without accidentally?
No wardrobe malfunctions on the show, Jennifer. Don't show your Krampuses.
I'm not going to show my Krampuses to our tens of people watching. I also have what's arguably the ugliest Christmas sweater I've seen in quite some time. It does have little like sparkly boozy cocktail things on it.
It's festive.
It is
Very
festive. I
Yeah.
feel like it is, and I mean this in no derogatory way, but it's like the type of sweater that a kindergarten teacher would wear when she's like in her Sex and the City era. Like, ooh,
Wow.
it's a cosmopolitan. Like it's
But she
that.
wouldn't wear that in class, would she?
Why not?
Okay. I'm
You can just say
what
they're all I mean, some of them kind of look phallic, but that would probably be the more arguably wrong choice.
Yes.
She would wear it in the teachers' lounge when they had their like
Their gift
white
exchange?
elephant. Yeah.
Okay. Not to get off track when we've never even gotten on track, but the school librarian at my children's school was going to be giving dibs as part of the gift exchange. So I might have to change my kid's school now at this point.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's read them already, but I'm just like, I don't think most of the teachers there know what I do, and that's on purpose. So, yeah.
So let's talk about your
Reason.
sweater.
Oh, okay. So I don't know. These probably look like they might be something like maybe a polar bear or something that would make sense.
They look like a sheep.
But they're not. Those are hippos. I'm gonna have to stand up a little bit so you can see my moodang. Which this is, I mean, I'm not gonna just wear it this year because I always want a hippopotamus for Christmas, and that is my most obnoxious favorite Christmas song.
That is my favorite Christmas carol.
It is. I love it. I love the little girl's kind of Shirley. It's not Shirley Temple, but it has a very kind of Shirley Temple-ish voice where it's a little girl who sounds like she's a 45-year-old woman at the same time, and it's very awkward. But I adore that song, and I love how annoying it is and how much it bothers my children when I sing it. So now I have not just I want a hippopotamus for Christmas. I want this specific hippopotamus for Christmas.
Well, because that hippopotamus is very famous. So
she's famous. She's been on SNL. And you've seen Wicked.
Yes.
We'll probably get to Wicked later. I think I was way too happy when Bowen Yang showed up on Wicked, because he's also who plays Mudang in SNL.
He also
And
plays the icebergs that the Titanic hit on SNL.
he's played pretty much all my
That
favorite
is,
characters.
yeah, that's variety. That is craft.
He is the consummate performer. He is a chameleon. He can be a hippo and an
He can be
iceberg.
anything. He could be a hippo and an iceberg. So last week I was in the airport and they were playing nonstop Christmas carols, as you do. But there was an alarmingly sexy version of I Want a Hippopotamus for Christmas playing.
Not the original?
Nope. No. This one was, I have no idea who was singing it, but I did say hello, Margaret Porter.
Margaret, I have extra. Yeah, I did bring the whole thing. I'm not really sure why, but
Margaret had her
We're sorry,
annual Christmas caroling giant party. I saw photos of people I know singing carols. So that's probably where all of Margaret's eggnog has gone.
Okay.
But yeah, alarmingly sexy version of I Want a Hippopotamus for Christmas. I'll have to find it or not.
Please don't.
But I was just like, this one shouldn't have been sung in like a kind of sexy voice, because it was like, I want a hippopotamus for Christmas. And I'm like,
ooh, what do you want to do to the hippopotamus?
Now, that's
the concern. I think we've gotten back to Wicked and the things that you think are in the book and that I'm reading right now to tell you whether or not they're in there. But Amanda wants to do things to a donkey. I don't know who Dominic the donkey is, but I'm a little worried, Amanda.
Oh my gosh.
Who's Dominic? Is he like in the nativity scene?
He sounds hot.
Mary around or something? Oh, he sounds hot. You would say. He sounds hot. He sounds hot. He's Dominic the donkey. But yeah, again, this does not fit because it is quite large. But honestly,
it's really big. I put it on and Roman's just like, is that a bathrobe?
Could be.
It could be. But I'm going to make Roman wear it to our New Year's Eve party that we're going to.
Well, some of our sweaters do go back and forth. Michael has one with the kittens and the bells, and I've borrowed that before, and that one always gets the most, compliments and stuff. And then I just like, if he's wearing it, I can play with it. It's weird if I'm doing it on myself, like not playing yourself. But for him, it's like I'm the cat batting the bells. It's a thing, I guess. But there are no bells or other things on this, and it is quite large. But that means it's comfortable, and maybe I'll grow into it.
Well, this eggnog, you never know.
I'm growing, but not in the ways we were trying to grow. 5'2" crew. We're not getting any taller, but we might be 5'2" squared.
I know. Like,
we're like, maybe not. Maybe
as an orb.
As an orb, shaped like the boba, like our cat who is completely. He's round. It's fine.
So happy holidays to you. I know.
Happy holidays.
It's always so funny now that it's just like you and I on camera to be like, oh, let's have this conversation be fresh and new. And it always is. But we talk a lot.
All the time.
All the time. So it's always fun to be like, Allison, what are your favorite books of the year?
Let me
we talk about this all the time.
Like let's look back at what we looked at and stuff. And it's like, I know I was thinking, who are some of the people that we haven't had on that we are trying to
we're gonna I think our big mutual past year and a half obsession, where we just have been devouring the backlist, is Ronald Malfi.
Maybe we should make an M and then a heart or something.
So I will say, for people we have not had on the show and books I've read this year, Small Town Horror is in my top 3 of the year, and probably in my top 5 of like all time.
You're doing math? Because that requires math. See, like when people say, what's your favorite this year? Or what's your favorite of all time? And then I have to start doing math, and like there's an algorithm, and I can't do any of it.
My favorite of all time.
Towards it.
Yeah. I feel like I have like maybe 10 that I can rotate in and out for favorites of all time. And then it's like whatever mood I'm in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I feel like Small Town Horror, I loved so much. And I, like, you and I have talked at length about this. Has like the best ending I've ever read. To me, it had vibes like Peter Straub's Ghost Story.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So if I was doing a best books of all time, I would like alternate whether I'm saying ghost story or small town horror.
Ooh, so you're basically saying he upstaged the master. He's like, the student has become the master at
You
that point.
know, I was going to say, well, I've read Ghost Story multiple times, but now I've read Small Town Horror multiple
Oh,
times
have you? I
because
didn't know
I
you
read
reread
it
it.
with my eyeballs
That's
and
weird.
I got the audiobook and I
I
listened to
haven't
it
gotten
with
the audiobook yet.
it's so good. And shout out to Joe Hempel, who does so many of Ron Malfi's audiobooks. He is one of my favorite narrators. And I just found out that he is going to be the narrator for Clay McLeod Chapman's Wake Up and Open Your Eyes, one of
Ooh,
the
awesome.
narrators. But
Is it going to be multiple? Okay.
there are multiple, but he's the main chunk of it.
I'm excited
So
for that.
I've read that one already.
But now
And
you're going to listen to it too.
yeah, I was just like, well, was going to try to, budget my money and not buy multiple books. But then I'm like, oh, well, I got Wake Up and Open Your Eyes for free
So it
on
doesn't count.
NetGalley, so it doesn't count. But I've
Doesn't
already
count.
pre-ordered the hardcover.
So the Audible, I mean, it's also very weird because here's how I am with my audiobooks. I have a service through my library where I get unlimited books for free, but it's only certain books, only certain titles. And yeah, you can only have them for a certain amount of time, but that's not usually an issue. It's usually whether or not they have it. So it's usually the determination of you're just Krampus now.
Now I'm
It's
just
usually
Krampus.
it's the determination of whether they have it available or I've got to use an audio credit. And the audio credits are technically free because I pay for the service through Audible, but I only get one a month. And then if I end up going ahead and buying another one, it's like, oh, that cost me. It's like, well, you're already paying for the service, but I try not to buy additional credits if I can help
I
it. And then when I
try
do, I get
not
like three at a
to.
time.
Yeah, same. And I feel like I try not to buy additional Audible credits for myself, but I do. My husband Roman is a big audiobook fan. So if he says, oh, I really want to read blah, 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 I'm like, okay,
Here you go. Here's your book.
here
Take
you
it.
go.
Well, and it's funny because unless I'm mistaken, I think Small Town Horror was the first I read of his, and I remember like reading at the beginning, going, "Okay, I'm feeling this. I wonder what's going to happen," and then the end just completely blew
I
me
feel like
away.
you read Night Parade before
Oh,
that.
I think you're right. I did read Night Parade, and I enjoyed Night Parade. And Night Parade was very much a, hey, did you enjoy The Last of Us? Then go read Night Parade because it
Yeah.
has a very similar vibe in many ways. And anytime the world is ending by way of plague or other type thing, I'm on top of that. So if anybody's
That's
wanting
a
to end the
weak
world,
spot for me.
I'm going to read it. So
Yep.
that's usually something I'm like, oh yeah, that was probably a great entry point for me. But then yeah, I've read everything else of his that I can get my hands on, and he's got a new one coming out. I'm like, oh, I want that, and it's like, have I already pre-ordered it? I've already pre-ordered it, but I
Um,
pre-ordered it so long ago. I'm like, I don't remember what I ordered.
so what's funny is a few months ago, his book, it was in November, The Narrows came out.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, okay, pre-order it. So I pre-ordered it, I think from Gibson's, my local independent bookstore. And then I forgot I had pre-ordered a limited edition signed copy of it from like a different bookstore. So like on
How
the
many of them
same
do you have
day,
now?
I have two copies of
Okay,
that.
only two. That's fine. That's
I have
not
two physical
excessive.
copies of that.
Okay. Margaret is so cold that she's making hot cocoa, but Jennifer's taking off her sweater, which
I'm
doesn't make sense because
I'm still
you're
cold.
freezing.
I
Then
am
why did
still
you take
cold.
off her sweater? Is it itchy?
No, but I feel like I wanted to represent Krampus a little
You need
bit
to Krampus
more.
this. I got it. Got it. Okay. And Amanda is clarifying that I'm assuming the donkey is from A Christmas Carol. I don't remember him in the Muppet version, and to me, that is canon.
What's so
So
funny is I was in the play for 5 years. I don't
for the
remember a
Christmas Carol,
donkey. Yeah. Yeah.
maybe they didn't have a
So
donkey costume,
they didn't have
so
a donkey costume, but I
nobody
was in
got to be an
Christmas
ass.
Carol for so long that I aged out of Belle, Scrooge's love interest, and then I got to be the laundress. Like
Ouch.
that was a brutal five
You
years.
didn't become what's like Mr. Fezzigig or whoever the old guy is from
I
the
never
40s.
graduated to Fezziwig's wife. I
Fezziwig.
did graduate.
Fezzigig is the creature on Dark Crystal. I just combine them in my head because they're all Muppets. It's fun.
I did get to be Scrooge's nephew's wife for a few years. Like she's in that scene where they're playing a game and they're like, "Oh, he's a rat." And it's
It's
Christmas present.
Scrooge.
Yeah. It's
Ah,
Uncle Scrooge. Ah! And you
oh,
just like
Victorian parlor games. Ah,
wackiness because they're all drinking like cocaine wine.
yes.
Yeah. So I
The
got to be
cocaine one. This is just eggnog.
just
Sorry.
regular eggnog. I got to be everything from Scrooge's sister to Belle to Scrooge's nephew's wife to the laundress. I think that's it.
Okay, Amanda's clarifying again. It's not in A Christmas Carol. It's a song played with all the songs on the radio, like "I Want a Hippopotamus for Christmas."
Okay.
Amanda, you're gonna
Oh,
have to
it's a
provide
Christmas
links.
Carol, not in the Christmas Carol.
I have never heard this song. I kind of want it to be like Italian because Dominic, the only Dominic I knew was an Italian chef, friend of our family. So maybe he's a donkey chef. I got nothing here. And then Margaret said she played young Ebenezer's fiance. So there you go. Is that
That's
Belle?
Belle.
If
Yes.
that's Belle, see, maybe they
That
had
is
to cast a
Belle.
lovely redhead, a lovely young redhead. And so
Yeah, Margaret and I could like bond over, but you love money more. That beautiful scene. Ugh.
always money more. Oh, sorry. That's the wrong answer.
That is the wrong answer. So I will say favorite books of the year of people we haven't had on our show. Small Town Horror is one of mine. What is one of yours of people who have not been on the show?
Okay,
maybe that's what we should be talking about. Just people who haven't been on the show.
Preferably because people who've seen the show have already heard us talk about the books we've had on the show, and then we also can use this as we just send them the video going, we talked about you. Would you please come on our show?
We've been talking about you.
I
feel like the amount of times though we've talked about Ron Malfi, it's like
a lot.
It's a lot, and it's like probably it's close to it being weird.
I think it started out weird. I'm not sure it ever wasn't weird.
I think it did start out weird.
It's fine.
I've met him in real life one time, and I was like, oh my, like, and it was just like I had no chill factor.
Maybe that's why he hasn't been on our show yet. He
was like, what?
I'm just gonna back away slowly from whatever
that sounds
is.
awesome.
Well, and I want to get back to that, but so you say you got to meet him in person. So I will say, like, one of the big things that happened this year for me that has been really fun is, so everybody knows because I talk about them, I have small children. I don't get out much. I basically live in this house here and take them to and from places they need to go to. But I've gotten to do a couple of different things this year, getting to meet certain authors in person or support fellow author friends. And that's been really awesome. And one of the things that I got to do back in the summer is I got to meet our lovely May Cobb.
I am so jealous.
And she was in conversation with Eliza Jane Brazier, who we also love.
I know. I was like, I was double jealous when I saw the photos of the three of you together. I'm like, well, that is a girls' trip I want to go on. To
be fair, it was like right after, like a week or so after you got to hang out with my actual sister at a book event in Austin. So it's like,
oh, that wasn't a book event. That was a bar.
That was just a bar. That was just drinks. That was just drinking with another author friend of ours.
We got to meet Kelly Hitchcock. So we talked about books, but it was a drinking event.
But one of the books that I really enjoyed is we need to have Eliza back on because I loved her. It Had to Be You, which sounds like a rom-com, but it's about assassins and there's a lot of murder going on.
And I haven't read that one yet, but I have it.
You need to read it. It's very fun. And it has kind of Killing Eve vibe to it.
Sold.
It's very fun. It's not as queer as Killing Eve, so I apologize there because you'll be like, damn it. But it's still very, very fun. And we need to have May Cobb back on because The Hollywood Assistant came out. We haven't gotten to talk to her yet either. One of the things that changed this year is we've gone from like multiple shows, like one every week to like two, which means we should be a little less crazy as far as our reading schedule. But it also means that there have been authors that have snuck by us that were like, we didn't get to have them on yet.
We didn't get to have them on yet. I know. So like, yeah. So what I was weirdly like my number two, not in any order, my number two book of like, we didn't get to talk about on the show is Incidents Around the House by Josh Malerman, because he was scheduled to come on the show. Yeah. Then I got COVID.
Yeah, you do
that. Then he got COVID.
And then that happened too.
And then I went to Europe, and then things happened, and then I saw him in Detroit and got to hang out with him for.
But that was not televised.
But he hasn't been on the show. But Josh has a standing invitation to come back at any point in time to come back. And we will still remember what happened in that book quite well because we were traumatized by it. Yeah.
So I don't.
Traumatized by other mommy. Also, like for me, because I'm an only child and neurotic.
Yes,
Uh, Bella is
you are
also
Bella.
an only child and neurotic, and Bella has a Grandma Ruth. I have a Grandma Ruth. I'm like, is this secretly what happened to me in my childhood?
And you just repressed it?
And
It
I
could be. And
repressed
he's
it
tapping into it somehow.
because he also has a Grandma Ruth. So either we are cousins.
I think that we go back to the whole, you sent a picture at one point, if you put it on Facebook, I think, where it's got you and Josh in the back and Allison Lako and Roman in the front. And it looks like two sets of siblings. Like you and
It looks
Josh are
like
siblings, and then Roman and Allison are siblings. And it's believable that it's like, oh yeah, this is just a family get together.
I know. I
Nothing
looked at that
crazy
and I'm
here.
like, well, those are two siblings that are like it was just
Totally possible, totally possible.
totally possible.
So one of the books that I read, and it was one of those things where, somebody, and you've done this to me a lot, which cracks me up, where somebody recommends a book that feels kind of like what you're writing, and then when it turns out it's completely not at all like what you're writing, but like there was just enough there. Like, I know I was told to read a few things. You're like, you have these things in it. And then I'm like, completely off, but I still want
I know. And I'm like, is this what you're writing, Allison? You're like,
no. And it's
no.
totally, well, and so one of the guests who I had on To the Moon, Allison, who I've had on a couple of times, is my friend Chandra Blumberg, who writes romance. And she was writing a book called
And
Second
she was
Tides.
on Vox
She was
once.
she was on Vox for Stirring Up Love, but she was recently on my show for her shark romance, Second Tides the Charm, where it's two biologists who used to be together and then are kind of forced proximity kind of thing and working through that. One of her friends recommended she read this book called Shark Heart. Name of the author is escaping me. I'll have to put it in later. And we were talking after the show, and she's like, yeah, someone recommended I read it. It is nothing like my book because it has nothing to do with it. But it is this gorgeous speculative tale about a world in which people get a virus or disease where they essentially
Love it already.
transform into animals. And the main storyline, because there's multiple storylines. Are you stuck? Jennifer stuck in her, let's get her out of her
I
headphones.
was just like, hold on, got to get to my eggnog.
I'm stuck. Where the main character literally is transforming into a great white shark, like over the period of like a year, and his wife has to deal with this, but it's also this metaphor for things like Alzheimer's and dementia as the person is changing. And it's this gorgeous book, and it's told in different timelines, and it's exactly the kind of book. It was so much better for me than it was for her
I know. I
in
was going to
terms of
say
like
that
what I
actually
write.
seems like a great comp for you.
Yes, it's perfect for me, but it was completely wrong for her. So she's like, this is better for you than it was for me. So I want to thank whoever told Chandra to read that book, because I love that. And I need to track down, I think I tried to track down the author on social media and reached out and never heard back. And that happens sometimes where either they don't have people or they're like, we have never heard of your show and have zero interest in talking to you. That's fine too.
Or they watch one clip of it and they're like,
And they're
these
like,
girls are
no.
crazy.
Or they see a picture of me with sausage fingers and go, I don't think we should be doing that. And
So I'm just going to say real quick, I
we
love
love you,
that
Vince.
love Vince, love that you chose your sausage figures picture
Hot dogs, but
for
yes.
the eggnog extravaganza promo picture, because again, I saw Vince
You got
last
to see
week.
Vince.
I got to go to Vince's legendary Vince, and I'm gonna say his last name wrong again. It's like Laguna.
It's Laguna. Yeah, it's
Okay.
basically like I
I've been
live by a
practicing.
city called Laguna, so I need to tell
Right.
myself, ignore the I in his name. It's just her show.
So we went to Vince's holiday party. It was amazing. He is a Jamie Lee Curtis super fan. So his home is like a museum. It's a museum to Jamie Lee Curtis. It's a museum to like horror in
Like old
general.
school horror, yeah.
Old school horror, and also just like really great like pop culture. He has like all these Kathy Bates autographs and photos. Like it's just incredible. Vince has a book coming out in February, a
So we get him in February?
poetry collection. We are.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I think there's secret talk that I would like eavesdropped on, that there might be like even a special guest. Like I think we might get two guests for the price of one.
I'll take it, because our budget for guests is $0.
It's $0. We don't pay.
So
So people who are watching this,
if they thought we were
don't tell
paying,
Ron Malfi we're going to give him money to be on our show.
yeah,
We won't.
don't. I mean, if that's what it'll take, we can figure something out.
I will buy him a
A
bottle of
mug.
scotch.
I
Cheap,
have a mug. It's been
cheap
used.
scotch.
Cheap stuff. Drugstore scotch, bottom shelf kind of
Yeah.
deal.
Oh, God.
That's where
Like
we
a
are. We can
like
figure
the
something better.
characters in my books drink. Like
The
bad,
crap stuff.
bad stuff.
The crap stuff. Yeah, and okay, so one of the things, and this is a confession in terms of like holiday stuff and all that, because this I'm getting back to other books that I've enjoyed.
Good, I want to
What
hear it.
one of the things that we were cheating in our family about getting each other gifts is several of us have like subscription boxes. So the ones that come around now just get wrapped and we're like, yay, because we're all hard to shop for. All my kids are hard to shop for. My husband's hard to shop for. I'm hard to shop for. So it's just like, hey, that's a gift. Let's wrap it up. And
Yeah.
one of the books I
And
got
you know
last
it's going to
year,
be good.
or not, whatever. I like opening stuff and seeing what's in there. One of the books that was in one of my boxes last year that looked very pretty, but I didn't get around to reading it, was Starling House by Alex Harrow, who I had read one of her books before. And it's very pretty, and it is still in its wrapper on my shelf. It showed up in my cloud library. I'm like, well, that way I can leave the book pristine, because here's the thing. I don't want to touch any of those really pretty books. They're really pretty. I want to leave them alone. And especially as everything's going on around here, I don't have time to eyeball read. If I have to read something with eyeballs, it's going to be for the show, or I'm not doing it because I just don't have time. Like, I bought myself the Out There Screaming anthology because I really wanted it. I've read maybe 3 pages of the first one because it's a physical book. I need to just download it and listen to it, which I will. But a physical book is just not going to happen. So when I got to listen to it, I was excited, and it was very well done. And if I'm not mistaken, it was narrated by one of my favorite narrators, Natalie Naudis. So that's one of those things where I'm like, she's narrating it, download. And I am like that. I am the kind of person, I am insta-buy on certain authors. I'm insta-buy on certain narrators too. So I'm like,
I've become an insta-buy on certain narrators.
Me too. Yeah.
So I will admit, I was never an audiobook fan of my husband Roman is an audiobook fan. So then I started getting into them.
Okay, so both of our husbands were the gateway drug to audiobooks for us.
Audiobooks. And then you pushed it over the edge because you'd be like, I'd be eyeball reading something and loving it. And you would say, like, this narrator is fantastic. And I'm like, well, I'll just listen to the free sample on Audible. I already own the book. I don't know why I turned Southern there, like bad Southern for a little bit. Bad accent. And then now I'm like, oh, well, I want to hear this. And plus, like, it's so helpful when I'm cooking.
Yes, that's exactly it. I mean, I have,
because you have a work commute now.
I have a work commute, and
you have kid commute.
I always have kid commute, and like sitting there in the pickup line in the canyon waiting for getting kids. I'm always sitting there listening. And I also have children who sometimes need me to sit with them while they are either doing their homework super late at night because they have pre-AP classes and it's like almost midnight and they're not done and need someone to like sit with them for emotional support, or little ones who are like, I need you to sit with me, mommy. And then I will sit with them. So
and you're like, hold on, let me just pop in this horror novel.
If I have a bright phone, it's distracting to them. If I'm just listening, if I have the screen turned away and I'm playing a game, that's fine too. But I do it for laundry, dishes, cooking, all the things, driving. I'm almost always listening to it. And that helps me get through so many more books than I would otherwise. And for anybody who's like, that's not really reading, I don't care what you think.
Don't be ableist.
Don't care. Because if I'm able to talk about it and ingest it and appreciate all the things I would, the only difference is I'm processing with my ears instead of my eyes. I'm still getting words into my head.
Yeah, I consider it all reading.
Yeah, it is. But I was the one who said, that's not reading, when my husband was first doing it. And
I think I said it too.
I did too. And it was my husband who first started doing it because, and I will admit this, so we were both reading, and I'd finished the series, I think, by the time he was at this one. He was reading the Gunslinger series, the Dark Tower.
Yeah.
And I want to say it was the 4th book, because it's usually the 4th book. It's usually Wizard and Glass. He was stuck. It's not my favorite. It's my least favorite in the entire series because it's kind of like it's out of order. It's a throwback to before he's with the quartet, and it kind of slows everything down, and he was stuck. So he went ahead and listened to it, and that pushed him through. And I'm like, that's great. That's good for you. I was so condescending and pandering, like, oh yeah, good for you, little trying to read. Good for you. Oh. I was awful. And then how, of course, he'd gotten the Audible subscription for that. And then he went and was listening to, I think the first one he had on was Ready Player One, which I wanted to read and hadn't read, narrated by Will Wheaton. And I'm sorry, but you can't use my childhood crush against me. That's plain dirty.
That's
And so
emotional
I'm like,
blackmail.
fine, I'll try it. And yeah, of course, Will Wheaton talking to me, I'm like, Will's paying me attention. Yeah, he's not. He's happily married. He doesn't know I exist. But I loved it, and I've been the audiophile ever since. But the narrator makes such a difference, and Will's one of my favorites too.
Was he your childhood crush because of Star Trek or because of Stand By Me?
Star Trek, because he was still a kid in Stand By Me. I mean, I did
Well,
see him
yeah.
in that, but he was. I mean, that came out when I want to say late elementary school, then junior high, and he was an older teen boy who was a nerd. So I'm like, hello.
So extra hot.
Total. Yeah, extra hot. That and Fred Savage. I had no taste. Because Wonder Years. So there you go.
I got the reference. I didn't.
Those were the crushes my sister made fun of me about, and like would send camp postcards where they read them out loud, saying like Fred Savage called and wants to know when you're back from camp. I'm like, thank you, Dana, for embarrassing me in front of everybody. Because that was at a point where I was like way over Fred Savage. I'd moved on to like Matthew Perry by that point with like high school. Thanks. Yeah. I don't have any taste, it's clear. But yeah, so the audio for Starling House was excellent. I really enjoyed it. So that was one that I really love and would love for you to get a chance to listen to. It's a haunted house of sorts, but different.
I mean, sold.
Like the word house was there. And was
if the word house is involved at all, I'm just like, whatever.
It featured a house. It featured a small town with its own weird history. It featured an author with their own weird history and lore, and I was all about all of it. I did have some friends say whoever wrote it, like they talk about poverty, had never really experienced poverty because it was not accurate as to descriptions of poverty. But because that wasn't something that I noticed, it didn't stop me from enjoying it. But that might be a trigger for some people. So I'll just put that out there.
Yeah, and that's good to know. And also, I mean, I grew up really poor, but there's different levels of poverty. So I've talked to people who were like, well, my poverty was this. And I'm like, well, my poverty was this, and they're different. What didn't, I shouldn't say what didn't make my top 3 of the year, because it really did, because I keep forgetting, is I Was a Teenage Slasher by Stephen Graham Jones. Is arguably one of the best audiobooks I've ever listened to in my life. That narrator, I was completely sold on this narrator. Like, I can't remember his name. I'll look it up, but that would be an auto buy for me.
You're like, everybody give me this now.
Yeah, because so I had the hardcover, and again, I got it from my local indie bookstore, Gibson's, and it showed up autographed by Stephen Graham Jones.
Did you know it was autographed?
I mean, sometimes they get autographed copies.
Oh, okay.
That's what they're
like, did you plan for
I didn't know it was autographed.
That was just like, I didn't know this was coming autographed.
But then I've never met Stephen Graham Jones, and I'm not going to lie and say I don't have a crush on him.
I think we all have a crush on him.
We all have a crush on him. So when I opened it and it signed, I'm like, I can't read this because
he's touched it.
He's touched it with his hands.
I need to go get another copy.
But then I've always done really well with Stephen Graham Jones books on audio. He has a very specific style that some people don't necessarily like. It's a little bit more literary.
Yeah, I listened to his Only Good Indians that way, and I loved that. I'm just trying to remember. Now I'm having the problem of I don't know what year it is and when I read that, because that was one of my absolute favorites that I won on, but I don't know if I read it this year or last year.
I think it was last year, because I almost brought up Whale Fall when you were talking about the sharks.
But I read it this year.
Last year.
But last year for me, this year for you. So we're still, I think we're both following Daniel Kraus on things. So Daniel, if you ever hear this, please come and talk about whales on the show.
And then, so I read that with my eyeballs, and then Roman just listened to it on Audible, so I got to hear it, and I know you listened to it.
Yes.
I Was a Teenage Slasher, Stephen Graham Jones. It takes what you think of as a slasher, turns it on its head, because it's told from the POV of the teenage slasher, and it's actually the most beautiful, heartbreaking story of being an outcast in a small town, kind of being in love with your best friend, what it's like to be bullied, what it's like to regret choices you've made, I won't lie, I sobbed out of sheer beauty for the
Oh,
last 3 chapters of that book because I was like, this is the most beautifully written language I have listened to or read in a while.
but
So
these are happy tears, but
these
also
are
kind of
happy
sad
tears, but
tears.
also sad tears, but
Just
also
lots of tears.
tears.
Just
Uh,
so many tears.
so I feel like I every time I say to non-horror people I was a teenage slasher, they're like, I don't like slashers, or
That's not what this is, so
it's
don't worry
not.
about
It goes above and beyond anything you could even comprehend. So yeah, I was a teenage slasher. I guess I have like a top 4 this year because I have to add that.
it.
And I
First off,
haven't
we don't
mentioned
have,
The
so it's fine.
Haunting of Velkwood by Gwendolyn Keist, which
Ooh,
is just beautiful, queer, about growing up in the 90s and being an outcast teenager and living in a dead
did
town.
you write that?
Did I write that? I
I
know.
mean,
I
it
was
just
like,
sounds like this is all autobiographical, Jennifer.
I mean, not gonna lie. I didn't write that.
Well,
But
and
there was
speaking of
lots of
autobiographical,
similar themes.
well, and you can always relate to those. But speaking of autobiographical, I was going to say you have been having a lot of your
Oh no.
creative nonfiction published in places, and it feels like one a week. Okay, I'm exaggerating. Again, can't math has been coming out
I'm
with these
having
different
a very
places.
good couple months.
You really are. So some of these are coming out, and it's so funny because I know you very well. So when I read some of these, I go,
You're like, oh, I've heard this story.
not that I initially heard this story, but my brain can't help but go, how much of this is the creative and how much of this is nonfiction? And unfortunately, I'm pretty sure it's all the nonfiction,
Well, here's the
with
thing
the
with
creative being
creative.
how it's told,
Exactly.
not that the facts aren't there. And they just make me break for you all the time
Oh,
because I'm like, oh, you went through that
thank
too.
you.
Ah,
No,
crap.
a lot of people hear the words creative nonfiction and
They don't know what to do with that.
they think it's like speculative memoir or like
Mhm.
memoir, but you're lying. But creative nonfiction, I know,
But you're
but that's called
lying.
fiction.
Well, that's what
But
I do.
but creative nonfiction is really it's 95% nonfiction, but you're telling it through literary devices and
Got it.
literary symbolism. So it reads like fiction.
Yes. And one of the ones that I read of yours had a play on the choose your own adventure, except there's really no
Yeah.
turning pages because you just have to keep reading. Like
Yeah.
there's no other pages. It's like just one page, you keep going. But reading through this really tragic time, and it was just so beautiful and so well done. And I know that a lot of this came from the class that you took with Diane Zinna.
Yes, I was about to say, I'm like, that piece, that very specific piece, especially wouldn't exist at all without Diane Zinna, who is the author of The All Night Sun. She was on our show our first year with this book. It's
800 years ago.
800 years ago.
Yeah.
The book is spectacular. That's in my top 10 of all time. But Diane Zinna, she teaches a lot of like memoir classes, and she teaches a class called Grief Writing Sundays. And one day, it was in Grief Writing Sundays, her writing prompt was write something with a choose your own adventure kind of structure to it. And that piece ended up coming out this year in Quail Bell magazine.
Yes.
3 years later, this is why it's like, you're like one a week. And I'm like, well, I'm having a good few months after.
Well, it's
It takes
also
a
the
long
whole,
time.
it takes time, and also you weren't necessarily submitting them right when you wrote them. Like a lot of times
No.
you write stuff and then you put it away in a drawer, and then there's a call that fits that, because sometimes a lot of these places are looking for a specific call and you don't have something that fits that call, and then you do. So you're like, oh,
Yeah.
that goes over here. So
Exactly.
you can send it that way, and it's like, oh, well, I love that. But I love that you have the ability to kind of tell your stories in different ways, and it's not just like Jennifer only writes horror. It's like, no, you write all sorts of things, but it's
But
always
they're all
you.
horrific.
They're all horrific. Oh, and Amanda says that it's definitely Italian. We're back to the donkey again.
Good.
So now I would like to have some like big piece of lasagna and hear the Dominic the Donkey song, and some I have no idea. I'm like picturing like poinsettias because they feel very Italian. They're probably not. But just the idea of like the red, the green, the white.
Okay. I'm like,
It's a
don't bring
French
the
restaurant.
poinsettias into your house. They're allergic.
Animals.
Cats. Yep.
Cats will eat them. My cats have not destroyed the tree yet, but we can always tell when Boba's been in it because his tail gets like the flocking stuck to it.
So I was going to say, you've had quite a year because you have had major things happen. You released Ranchers Take Manhattan.
Yeah.
You adopted 3 kittens who were all siblings at the same time.
Maybe.
Maybe siblings,
Yeah.
but who knows? You also did go back to work.
Yeah, I'm back to work, so that means like my writing is much slower. I can still read because I have a drive now, but I get to take the toll road, so I'm like one of those fancy people with my transponder driving down, and it's been nice, and I'm using like different parts of my brain. But if some of my writing ends up looking very different now because of the sentence structure being like all legal words
When
again,
all of a
someone's
sudden,
gonna have to edit that
if
out. I
all
apologize
of
to
your main
my beta.
characters become lawyers, we will.
Dude, I've already had that.
The ranchers take on the lawyers. Like
Like,
if
that's what Olivia was. She was a lawyer, and we got
I
her
know.
out of that for a reason to put her in the Ranchers. And yeah, but yeah, the book came out in. I want to say that book came out in July. The kittens came in June. I went back to work in October, and
What has been the most
obviously
chaotic? The kittens.
the
The
kittens.
kittens or the book launch?
Kittens. Well, I would say just trying to find. I haven't found my groove yet. Like Emperor's New Groove and Stellar got a groove back. I haven't found mine, so I'm going to call Stella and say, "How did I get my groove back?" And I think it was sleeping with a younger man. So they don't. That wasn't what I'm trying to do. But finding my time groove. Was that a spoiler for Stella got her groove back? Because I haven't actually seen it. That's just what I think happens in it.
No,
But
I was just like,
I haven't gotten like
"Ooh, risque talk from
yeah,
Allison."
just like the whole finding out like where do you spend your time, because I'm only working part-time, but I'm also still the person who gets the children to and from school and gets them to most of their extra things, and they're all extra, let's just put it that way. So I still haven't found like the time to like carve out and be able to like sit down and get my head back in my books. And I have one book that I started at the beginning of last school year, stopped to write another project, and then came back to this one this year. And I have that other project that's about halfway done, and it's like my goal to get through both of those at some point. But it's just like I don't remember how to write
It'll
anymore.
happen. You remember how to write. It's just figuring it out.
They'll
And
show up looking like a special interrogatory, and it'll be very weird. Like,
I don't
how
know
do
what
you solve
any of
this?
that meant.
I just legaled at you. I'm sorry. I'll stop.
I know. I was like, Allison, please remember that I've had a cup of eggnog and I went to school for theater.
You're like, and I went to clown college. I'm sorry.
It would have been so much better for like my bio. Like every stupid thing I've ever done, even now, I always feel like it's for the memoir. And I feel like going to clown college would have been much better in my like when you have to submit that 100-word author bio
Yes.
to be like, Jennifer went to clown college, blah, blah, blah. So because I don't have clown college, I always add in like, she's been a magician's assistant. She's
Yes.
done
The
it. And people are like,
burlesque.
a magician's assistant?
Ooh.
Ooh. And I'm like, it
The
wasn't that
comic book
fun.
shop. Why did our voices all go up doing that? I don't know. My
It's the
voice is down
eggnog.
because, as you can tell, I am like congested beyond all belief, but it's fine.
I like your sexy cold
Oh,
voice.
thank you. Yeah, if I sang Hippopotamus for Christmas, I would be doing it, Phoebe Buffet style, smelly cat.
In the
Smelly hippo.
inappropriately sexy version of I Want to Hippopotamus for Christmas.
Not
Okay, what is your one more book from you that wasn't not featured on the show?
Is that a trick question? Because I don't remember. Like
Mhm.
I'll have to look back and see if there was something else that really hit me. Other than, well, okay, so I'll cheat and say there is a book coming out this upcoming year by Robin Green that the title keeps changing. So I don't even know what the title is because I was one of the first betas, and it has gone through like 17 different titles because Robin named it, and then their agent changed it, and then the publishing company is like, it's this, and then they're like, just kidding, it's not going to be that. So once it's actually got a cover and an announcement, I will say it. But that was one of my absolute favorites. But they will be on our show, so that's
Yes.
we don't have to beg because they're one of our friends, so they will come on our show and talk about that. But that's a rom-com. It's a gay theater rom-com.
Yes,
So
yes,
all the
yes.
boxes. Totally there for it.
I love that you're like checks all the boxes. You're like, what Jennifer doesn't like about rom-coms, she really likes about queer theater stuff.
There's theater, and I
do
love both
like
the leads.
rom-coms.
I love both the leads. Dexter and Jonah are just like I'm in love with them. They're amazing, and I'm so excited to get to talk about it with other people who've read it. And this has happened a couple times now where I'm like the first person on the planet or one of the first people, and then I find the book in the wild, and it's like, and I really annoy my children when I do that. But like I was at Barnes and Noble yesterday getting a gift for a child who had the misfortune of being born this week. So like his birthday has been totally overshadowed. But we were at a birthday party yesterday for this child, so I was getting gifts, but then we're getting some last minute Christmas stuff. And I was in the fantasy section, and Francis White's Voyage of the Damned was not there. And I was like really frustrated. I'm like, excuse me, sir, where is it? But then we're wandering around, and then it's on a display table somewhere else, and there's like
oh yeah, and like the display
great.
table says like the best book of this year,
Well,
and
yeah,
you're like, oh well, I can't have
promoted,
righteous indignation.
But I kind of wanted to take a couple back and put them in the section because you want them in both places. You want them where that special display is. But if someone doesn't see the special display and is just looking by, oh, I don't know, author's last name and genre, you want it there too. And maybe it was there and someone bought that
and
copy.
It sold out.
And it sold, and they need to move those. And you know, I moved Mary McMinn's A Rose by Any Other Name face forward. Like I found our friend Con Wong's Circus Infinite face forward. So I am the one, like if you see there are too many books face forward facing in a Barnes and Noble, that means I've been there. I'm like the book fairy, turning things face forward.
I won't lie, I have been known to change the displays. Not in my favorite bookstore, Gibson's. Not in Gibson's. Ryan and Elizabeth are going to be watching this. They're like, do not touch our displays.
Ryan, no, but like, would never.
Like in an airport, or if I'm like at a Barnes and Noble, or like the few times I've gone into like a Books A Million or something like that, I'm just like moving things around. Fixing it to just be, yeah.
Well, and I've never moved anything, even when I kind of wanted to. So some of my local favorite bookshops, I love Bookman and Orange, which moved locations, and they actually do carry the original versions of my books, and they're in general fiction, which I'm okay with, but I kind of want to move them back to romance, but I didn't because they put them there, and I'm like, that's okay. I will let them stay. So don't kick me out, Bookman. I didn't move them. And then Heartbound, I'm assuming we'll put them up with contemporary romance where they go, because they have like signed copies of mine now, and that's in Anaheim. And this is now an unpaid promo for Heartbound.
I keep seeing you post about them.
Yes, and if you were local, I would take you. But it is this totally adorable
that shop looks adorable.
It is super cute. It is super, super cute. And it's over, for people who know Orange County, it's in downtown Anaheim, but like the part they've all redone recently. So it's near the Packing District. So if you park at Packing District, you can just walk across the street and come over there. And it's just down the street from the Anaheim Public Library, where I used to take my kid when she was little, and where I used to go when I was really, 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 really little. Because I live in Orange, but Anaheim is still my hometown. So I'm like, they're both my hometowns. And so they've got all my signed copies for the whole series there. And they have just like the greatest selection of every kind of romance, including, you know, fantasy, queer, YA, Western. I didn't know that was a thing, but they've got
everybody can fall in love, Allison.
Even the horse. We're back to Dominic the donkey. Is a donkey a Western thing?
Donkey's not a horse.
But they've got it's a great little store, and it's Pacific Islander women owned, or Asian Pacific Islander women owned local store. So it's
I love that. You need to do a signing there. You need to do a book launch there for Lori.
I sign books, but I was just signing them. I wasn't like personalizing them. So I want to do that. It is small though. So if I did a book launch, I'd have to do it like over 7 hours to get everybody in and out. I don't have that many fans. I don't know who I'm kidding. It's a lovely place. I would do it. But then the last one I was going to mention, because getting back to what I was saying of getting to meet people in person, is a friend of mine who, she is an author, but primarily she's a professional chef. She released a book. Yes. Jennifer's like, food? Go on. She and I met, how old are our children? 14 years ago. In a Babies Born in 2010 moms group locally.
Oh, golly. But that's weird, because it's only 2012
I know. We're like, what? No, that we're mathing again. And she is a professional chef. Like, we see her on TV all the time for things, because she works for like Polly Pies and stuff like that. And she has a book that's just come up. Her name is Glenda Galvan Garcia. And the book is The Whole Enchilada. And it is so cute, because
it's such a cute name.
The art is really, really cute, but it's all Spanish and then English. So it's completely bilingual, every single portion of it. So it's not like, oh, they go back and forth. Like, no. everything's in Spanish and everything's in English, so you can like compare things. So it's got for all of it, and it's got Hispanics in different fields of of excellence, from science to theater to art to politics, all this stuff. And but all the like the little recipes are all meant for kids, like at their level. So some of them are like literally it's like hot dog nachos. I'm like, I love it, because like kids are like,
I
I
love
will
that.
eat that. And then there's other a little bit more complicated recipes like cookies and things that require baking, but I adored it. But she was doing an event at Christmas time a couple weeks ago in downtown Tustin at one of my newest favorite bookshops at Arvida, Arvida Book Co., which is like a new local bookshop. So that's another one that we got to go to, and they have like a private parking lot, and that's where all the people were set up with the books. And then there
Oh,
was
I saw
like
the photos of that. That looks so
it was really
adorable.
fun. So I got to
Um,
see Glenda, and we made our children take pictures. Like, you guys saw each other as babies, and they're like, "Why
that
are we
is so
doing this?"
cute. I am going to do a quick shout out before we end, because when you said like
Yeah.
everything's in 2 languages, I did have the spectacular opportunity this year. So I am on the committee for New England Crime Bake, which is a smaller crime
I
convention
know where you're going with this, because I was
in
going to
New
say that,
England,
but go
in
on, go on.
Boston. And our guest of honor this year was Gabino Iglesias, who has
Gabino,
not been on our
please come on our
show.
show. Because okay, so here's my request, and I know he's going to be like, Allison, that is the most ridiculous thing ever. Gabino, I would like you to keep writing books with more and more and more Spanish in them,
I don't think
because
that's a ridiculous request. He,
but I want them to
that's
be incrementally more Spanish, because so I listened to The Devil Takes You Home, which is this brutal and beautiful book, and then I recently got to listen to now I'm gonna blow the name of it. I'm gonna give me a second. Let me look it up in
I
my
know. I was like,
it's like No Saints, something like that. All Saints or
oh
No
yeah,
Saints. Zero Saints. I guess Zero
Zero
Saints.
Saints.
But it's a novella. It's not super long, but I loved it, and I felt like it had maybe more Spanish. I don't know, but I haven't used my Spanish enough since I was fluent. Back in college, and I love going back and forth, because he doesn't do the whole I'm going to repeat it back and forth. It just flows back and
It
forth,
flows.
and
It so
I understand it, and listening to it I absolutely adore it. So I'm like, what I need is for him to just keep increasing the Spanish till I'm
into
listening in pure Spanish. I'm not at that level.
so
I
as
won't be
somebody
for a
who
while.
doesn't speak Spanish at all,
Do
um,
you need help? I can help you.
I actually don't, because I feel like, and it helps me when I listen to it
Yeah,
more than read it. But also, I know a little French and Italian, so there's
reading it probably better if you were doing it in,
there
because
is
you don't have to try to listen
because
to
I
it
took
going.
Latin the way cool kids do. Don't laugh. But yeah, I took Latin. I was in the Latin club. Um, Whoa, but only for a year, and then I switched to the modern foreign language club when I took German. Any hoops, I've always been a barrel of fun. I got to interview Gabino Iglesias for the guest of honor interview at New England Crime Bake,
Yes.
which was this great like hour and a half interview while people are eating food in front of you. So like I was starving. But it was a great interview, but they
Rude.
put us up on these like really tall chairs.
I saw the chairs. I would have fallen out of. You're not tall enough for those chairs. Did somebody put you in one?
So I saw the chairs before the interview started. I knew I couldn't be introduced, walk across a stage, and then get up in the chair.
No.
I was like, nobody's paying attention to me now. I'm going to get in the chair and just sit
Introduce me
here
here.
awkwardly.
That's better.
And it was good. But then when it was done, Gabino's such a sweetheart. Like he could see my feet were like dangling off the floor, and the stage was up off the floor.
Oh dear.
So I was like dangling, dangling. And like as we were done, he's like, "Do you need help getting down?"
Out of the chair.
Like a child. And
Yes.
I did need help
He's like,
getting down.
boop,
I know.
back
He was
down.
like, "How do you want to do this so it looks like you're a grown up still?" And I'm like,
Mm.
"Maybe like a handshake?"
And they
It
just
was like
yank you out of the chair.
so
And also
yeah.
not like grab your boobs in the process. Like, hold on. Where's your waist? There we
I
go.
was like,
Line the
why
waist.
am I wearing a pleather mini skirt today while
Ooh.
I'm like doing this? But anywho,
Ah,
it was he is once he finally comes on Vox Vomitus, he is such a pleasure to interview, and he was so lovely and generous and warm. So that was like Yeah, that was like another like
Holiday year.
book thing I
Well, and
did
I was
this
gonna say,
year.
like, he has verbally agreed to come on the show. It's mostly just Gabino never stops traveling. So
Right.
getting him to sit still for something, that's gonna be hard. So I mean, we were joking, we were just gonna quick go live on Vox as soon as the interview was over for
No,
you.
but
Like,
we
you're already
both
here.
ran to our sandwiches because
Well,
we got
yeah, people are eating in front of you guys, and you
it
guys are
was a
like,
lunchtime interview. Like our
"Oh,
little like our meals were like off to the side. We're like, just get me those sandwiches.
where's the
But
sandwich?"
yeah, he's very busy. He's traveling a lot. He writes for the New York Times. He writes for NPR. He writes for like
Well, and he had a
everything.
book come out, which I have bought, and again, I'm gonna listen to it because
Yeah.
I want to, and B, eyeball reading.
Yep.
Who does that? I don't have time for that.
So yeah, I think that's it. We're coming up on an
I think that's
hour.
year. That's our
Um,
year.
that's our
That's our
year.
year.
That's our year in not Vox Vomitus book news.
Well, and hopefully some of these will be ones we get on this next year, and
It's
we'll
gonna
need to sit
happen.
down and be like, what are we doing? Because I don't think we have anything scheduled yet, and often we don't, and then we get like a month and a half locked, and then it's like, oh, we don't have anything after them. Let's go do the next month and a half. And I know we have
Yeah.
people that we wanted to have on earlier and didn't, and would like to go back and do that. And hopefully people are like, yeah, I have written 5 books since then. I don't want to talk to you anymore. We'll talk about the newer book. It's fine. It's all
Yeah.
good. Be
No,
happy.
it's all good. And I will say, and somebody I've talked to about coming onto our show maybe early February is Jonathan Jans, who I
Ooh.
absolutely adore. Um, yeah, we might be, I don't want to say we might be breaking news in February. I'm hoping we do. But Jonathan's incredible. I'm listening to his book right now, The Darkest Lullaby. I'm a big fan of his. So Jonathan will be on our show. Vince will be on our show. We don't have dates set for a few people, and
We rarely do. And half
we
the time
rarely do.
somebody gets sick or something gets changed anyway. So we're flexible. We
We're
move things around.
flexy.
It's all good.
It's all going to be good. But everybody who watched this live, thank you for the comments. People who are listening to the replay or just
Enjoy your
on
mug.
audio. You missed the fact that like my glass is pretty blue and Allison's mug is blue.
And I have Moodang on my shirt.
And she has Moodang, and I took off my ugliest sweater in the world. But everybody, thank you. Thank you for another incredible year. Can't believe it's about to be 2025. In
I'm not ready
July,
for that. Yikes.
Vox will be celebrating its 5th birthday.
It'll have to start kindergarten in
I
California.
know. I was going to say it's going to have to go to
And
kindergarten.
it'll wear that sweater.
Only if it's the teacher.
Like it's the teacher. I feel like none of the teachers I saw this week were wearing anything like that, but some
Well,
of
it's
them
because
were
you
wearing
live
some
in
cool stuff.
California where it's
Mhm.
like fancy.
It's not that fancy, but our teachers really did go all out in terms of like some of their cuteness and what they were wearing, and nobody was wearing anything like that. I'll just say.
Well, I can mail it to somebody if they want it.
Mrs. Irwin, do you want a sweater?
No. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful